you came from, it matters where you're going. You can come from humble circumstances and you can do great things. And that has really unified us as a people, because if you think about the proverbial man from Mars coming down and saying, who are these Americans? You'd have to say, well, they have come from, their ancestors have come from every corner of the earth. They have every possible kind of national name. There are Korean Americans and Japanese Americans. There are Mexican Americans, and there are Chinese Americans, and there are German Americans. They come from everywhere. Some of them were the descendants of slaves. Some of them came over on the Mayflower. Some of them came over on ships a lot less grand than that. But they all came here seeking that great dream that it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going. Now, the men from Mars would say, so they also don't share religion. And you could say, no. They are Protestant and Catholic. They are Jewish and Muslim. They are, some of them, nothing at all. But they, too, believe it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going. You would say, oh, that's what unites them. And then you would have to say, yes, but today they have to be a bit concerned that the vehicles that have allowed them to pursue that belief that you can come from humble circumstances and do great things, those vehicles are in some trouble. You'd have to say that the one thing that has always made it possible to come from humble circumstances and do great things is a high-quality education. Because without a high-quality education, you are a victim of your circumstances. With a high-quality education, you may not be able to control your circumstances, but you can control your response to your circumstances. Now, in my family, this was always an article of faith, and maybe you've heard me tell this story, but I just love my grandfather's story. My granddaddy Rice was a sharecropper's son in Utah, won't surprise you, E-U-T-A-W, you know, Alabama. And Granddaddy Rice, when he was a young man, decided he wanted to get book learning in a college. And so he asked how a colored man could go to college, and they told him about this little Presbyterian school called Stillman College. And so he saved up his cotton, and he went off to Stillman College. And he went to school for a year, and then they said, well, you see, that's great, but you finished your first year, and now you don't have any money for your second year. And he said, that's right, I'm out of cotton. They said, well, you're out of luck. But he said, so how are those boys going to school? They said, well, you see, they have what's called a scholarship. And if you wanted to be a Presbyterian minister, then you could have a scholarship too. And Granddaddy Rice said, that is exactly what I had in mind. My family has been college educated and Presbyterian ever since. Now, the fact is, John Wesley Rice knew that that education was going to transform him into somebody he would otherwise never have been. And more importantly, he knew that not just him, but generations of Rices would be well served because they would be transformed. My father would go on to be advanced degreed and be first a high school guidance counselor and a football coach, which explains why I love football so much. And my mother, a teacher, but his sister, my father's sister, would go to the University of Wisconsin, and in 1952, she would get a PhD in Victorian literature, and she would write books on Dickens. Okay, what I do is a little odd for a black person. She wrote books on trailblazing. He knew it was going to be transformative, and it was. That's what education does. Yes, the stakes are high for our country, creativity and innovation and the ability to continue to lead. But the stakes are high also for every one of our kids, that they'll have that opportunity to be what they should be. If we really believe that every life is worthy, because there are no kings and queens in America, because we are all created equal, if we really believe that, if every life is worthy, every life is also capable of greatness. And you'll never know unless every kid has access to that high quality education. Now, when we're giving them that chance to be educated, we need to make sure that they're finding something that they're passionate about, something they love to do. Because once you've found a passion, life is never quite the same. Not just something that you want to have a job doing, but something you really love to do. And you can see it in these kids. They love what they're doing. And somebody among this group is really going to be a great entrepreneur because you can see that they love, that they're passionate about. Passion is what makes getting up in the morning to do your job worth it. We need to encourage our kids to do something hard. You know, it's very easy to go through life just doing things that are easy for you. I often ask when I have students together, how many of you love to read and write? And some hands go up. And then I say, how many of you love math? And maybe fewer hands go up, but a few go up. And I say, if you love math, then do a lot of reading and writing. And if you love to read and write, then do a lot of math. Because you're going to find that overcoming something that was hard for you is more fulfilling than continually doing things that are easy for you. Now, what they have done today, our 26 young kids, young people, it's hard. It's hard to get up in front of a group of people and sell your ideas. It's hard to get up and find the words when somebody asks you a question that you didn't quite anticipate. And we had some great answers. My favorite, maybe, was, I'll see you after. And so, being able to respond that way, being able to present your ideas, we all know, those of us in the professions, that it's the key to being successful now for the rest of your life. And you have to practice it. I've often been asked, you know, so you're pretty comfortable doing public speaking. And I say yes. But I can remember at 4 years old, having the chance to do public speaking. In my case, it was Easter speeches in my father's church. Maybe some of you did those too. And then there were the school plays that we all participated in. And maybe some of us were lucky enough to be in school orchestra or school choir. Do you know how few of our schools these days are providing those opportunities for our children to have a chance to perform? You learn to be confident. You learn to control those nerves that are just stirred up in you at that moment that you have to speak. And you get better at it. Time and time again. It's like anything. You practice it, you get better at it. And maybe you forgot what you were supposed to say. And you figure out something. And the next time you think, all right, I got through that, I can do it. So the opportunities that these young people are having to persuade us about their ideas, it's a wonderful chance for them to do something hard. But it's also great that they work so well in teams. Today, there are few Lone Rangers out there who would even claim that they are achieving it all by themselves. Grayson, you have a team in running this bank. If you are in any walk of life these days, you recognize that leadership is not just leading somebody out there. It's recognizing leadership capabilities in other people and bringing them together toward a common goal. And so what we saw our students demonstrate here today is that they have put these teams together and they have worked hard. Each one has played his or her part, but in the final analysis, they are responsible together as a team for presenting these ideas and for making their case. We've also seen a little bit of performance art. And we all know that in public speaking, in presenting your case, in briefing the President of the United States, there's a little bit of performance art. You have to make it seem as if it's effortless, and you have to make it interesting. Nobody wants to listen to a boring person go on and on and on. They have learned performance art. They know how to make it interesting. So they're passionate, and they're doing something hard. And they are doing performance art, and they're showing us that they have ideas. I was interested to see that the ideas are what's on their minds. Get a good haircut. I can understand that. To be able to have a safe, fun place to go and play. Energy conservation, amazing these days. Football concussions, amazing these days. To have a compassionate place for people who are in the hospital to be with their family and friends. I mean, just wonderful, wonderful ideas that show what's on our team's minds. And so, This exercise has demonstrated for us what it can be like to learn in a way that is unique and novel and fun, but still to learn some of life's skills. I want to say to the teachers who have shepherded, there is nothing like the teaching profession. I know that there are people who criticize these days and maybe don't realize how really hard it is to be a teacher. I am a teacher in a university, but my parents were teachers, and there's really nothing like that person who guides you along. Teachers are on the front lines of making sure that our kids get a good, high-quality education. And I just want you to join me in thanking these teachers and every other teacher who goes to work every day to make life a little bit better for our kids. Finally, I just want to say to you, the community, the United States of America is a place that is incredibly individualistic. We all believe that we have our rights. We all have our interests. And I have a German friend who once said to me, you know, you Americans think that just because you have rights, you have to exercise them. I said, that would be us. Indeed, if we think you violated our rights, we'll take you all the way to the Supreme Court. But there's something else about us that's a bit of a paradox. We're also the most communitarian people in the place here. We're a people where communities come together, business leaders, civil society, community leaders, to try to make life a little bit better for each other. In 1835, de Tocqueville traveled to the United States, and he experienced what he called these voluntary associations. We would now call them civil society. Groups like the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis, that helped with this group, with this project here. He's probably experienced groups like the Salvation Army and those places where citizens help citizens. This gathering today of community leaders and business leaders, of people who just want to provide opportunities for